Guys, welcome on into Three Bold Takes. That's Freddie, and I'm Quint. No, I'm Chase, guys. It's been a long time. Good to see you again. Actually, I don't get to see you. You get to see me. So maybe that's what you should be saying on the other side of the screen. Whatever. Typically we're going to talk about games, but this time I kind of came up from the grave. I haven't been here in a few weeks. I felt this turning in my spirit to hop on this week just so I could talk about how a new grave should be formed for the one and only Shane Beamer. And why, Chase, you haven't been on here in so long. Why are you going to get on here and just scream about Shane? Because Shane Beamer is one of the worst coaches in college football. He's been overrated since he got the head coaching job and has been a nepotism hire from the start. Well, his dad was Frank Beamer, and his dad was one of the greatest coaches of all time. And his dad was for Virginia Tech. He was a very solid coach, one of the most respectable coaches to come through college football, and I love it. And Shane Beamer has had a lot of potential. That potential has come. It has not been shown, and whatever potential was there, or if you think is still there, is finally gone. He had the 287th game, I believe it was. I believe that's correct. Leading by how much at halftime, Freddie?
27.
27. 30-3 over the number 3 ranked team in the nation in Texas A&M, Mike Elko, who has been just looking absolutely amazing this season on Kyle Field in Aggie land. 30-3. 30-3. Probably. And at one point, actually, during that game, when that happened, I'm actually going to have to sit here and give props to Shane Beamer if he wins this game. Because not only are you winning this game, I'm talking about B2A. You were absolutely spanking the Aggies at this point. And it looks like you're going to be able to do that for the whole rest of the second half. And then I wasn't able to watch the game, guys. I was able to keep up with highlights, keep up with the box score. But then I was like, oh, man, that 30 to 17? Oh, man, is that 30-24? I was like, oh, man, if he blows this lead, you're going to have to fire Beamer. Oh, man, is that 31-30? If Beamer doesn't score again in the second half, and it's not firing Beamer, it's, hey, this is the middle of the fourth quarter. Why don't you just go ahead and grab your bags? You go ahead and get out of here. We'll let the players coach the rest of this one. Because there's no way you're going to lose this game up 30-3 at halftime and then lose it 31-30 and become the first team ever to lose a game when they were up by 27. There's just no way, Freddie. There is no way. But there is a way because Coach Beamer is the only way. And he lives alone in infamy now. And so for me, I don't think there's a way at South Carolina where you've had decent seasons. You're like, oh, we're budding. We're about to hit our streak. We're about to go high. Like we have chances at like SEC championships or something like that where we can go play with the big dogs. And then now you're back down to what, 3-7 this season? Blowing one of the most horrific leads in college football of all time. And you're saying, you know what? Shane Beamer's still the way. He's still the truth. He's not Jesus. He's not the way, the truth, life. Get him out of South Carolina. Get him out. I don't know. I don't know, Freddie. Am I way off the mark here that Shane Beamer deserves any other kind of recognition to stay as the head coach of South Carolina?
Listen, I'm not going to say that I've been a Shane Beamer apologetic against you all this time, because I've gone through moments where he's shown what he can do, and that was last year, almost making the playoffs, right? But that was off the back of a experienced team. That was off the back of a quarterback playing out of his mind, who, by the way, came in as first team preseason All SEC, ahead of some notable cats, Garrett Nussmeier, which, whatever, Arch Manning, which, as we know, was a preseason Heisman contender. So those were the comparisons here for a quarterback in South Carolina. And then you see the wheels absolutely fall off at South Carolina. You win the first game. See, you come into the season ranked 13th in the country, right? You beat Virginia Tech at home 24-11 in such an ugly game. And then you vault up to being top 10 in the country. You beat SC State 38-10. Well, then you drop down to 11 after a win, which is kind of weird. But then you get beat 31-7 by Vandy. Now, you can point to that, oh, well, Sellers got hurt. They had the backup quarterback in, whatever. Sure. You still lost 31-7. I don't care what you say. Then you follow that up with a loss at Missouri. So you got back-to-back losses. Then you beat Kentucky, and then you lose to LSU. Now, at the time, it was like LSU's ranked in 11th in the country. It was a respectable game, 20-10, closer game. And so it was like, okay, we'll give it to you. It's on the road, whatever. But now we know how truly bad LSU is. Then you get beat by Oklahoma at home 26-7. And obviously, Oklahoma just beat Alabama, so they're a really good football team. But again, it was an embarrassing performance from the offense. And that's what the trend is so far this year. The most that they've scored this year in a game, am I seeing this right? 38 against South Carolina State.
Yep. Yep.
Other than that, the next closest is 35 against Kentucky,
It was also horrible.
who is on the same level as SC State. I'm going to say it.
Yep.
They're on the same level as South Carolina State.
Yep.
So what I'm getting at is what we saw in the first half of this Texas A&M game was not the offense playing out of its mind, which it did, but it was a byproduct of the defense playing out of its mind. And that is what we thought coming into this year would kind of be the case, right? Like, they were an experienced team last year, but they also had a lot of younger players playing. So we were like, okay, the defense is going to be really good. A&M played like dog doo-doo. And they look like a team that honestly makes sense that they've played only the bottom half of the SEC. And they were looking to get embarrassed. And the fact that you could not score any points in the second half, not even a field goal, it looked like the offense was playing to not lose the game rather than playing to try to win the game. And that comes down to coaching, and that comes down to Shane Beamer. Now, I think that's a fireable offense. You know, we have this whole LSU thing going on where was he fired? Was he not fired? Everybody knows he was fired, but LSU's trying to play victim here and say that we didn't actually fire him. We fired him for calls, whatever. This is a 4 calls firing offense, in my opinion. Obviously, it's not by law or by contract, whatever. This was the most embarrassing second half blow, or, just one of the most embarrassing performances in the second half I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I think that number that you said, 287, backs that up. That this was such, and listen, I watched this entire game pretty much. I started off watching the Notre Dame game. They went up 14-0 really quickly. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. South Carolina's up 7-0. Let me flip it over there. Okay. Oh, crap, dude. Pick 6. Oh, my God, dude. A fumble return for a touchdown. Oh, my God. What is happening? And then it was just like nothing. And it was this is what I don't want to happen. I agree. Shane Beamer should be fired. But I don't want to only give the blame to South Carolina. Because the way Texas A&M came back in that second half, that's a national championship level football team. And if they can do that for an entire game, I don't know who's going to beat them. I think they will get beat. I don't think they're going to win the title, but I'm saying that team that I saw in the second half looked unbeatable.
Yep.
Defense was perfect. Offense and Marcel Reed was clicking on all cylinders. Welcome to the Heisman race, my friend.
Yep.
Hey, and listen, me and Quinn talked about this probably 3 weeks ago, that he is not getting the love he deserves.
No.
And now, after this performance, and let me just pull up the stats, dude, because at first I was like, he's going to get exposed, right? Like, he's having a terrible game, whatever. And yeah, he had two interceptions, but he threw for 439 yards.
Yeah.
And 3 TDs, and he had 13 rushing yards. So, he had 450-yard all-purpose, and unbelievable performance. Shane Beamer, you're terrible. The only issue, though, and South Carolina fans, I'm very curious here, who could they hire? Like, who could they realistically hire that could be better than Shane Beamer with all this coach carousel going on? What do you think?
Man, that's the hard part, because you got to, with the way that college football is nowadays, you got to basically have an elite head coach that can also be a general manager at the same time. That's a really tough position. That's why you see a lot of coaches like Chip Kelly, who got out of a head coaching duty to go play offensive coordinator at Ohio State. won a championship with it. But that's why there's a lot of people like that. I think you're there's not really a lot of great lateral moves. I definitely think for South Carolina, the brand that they have, you're usually going to have to promote like a really good coordinator from a Power Five school or coach a really good head coach from a group of five and take a chance. And like there are a lot of great group of five head coaches. Like, man, I've gotten on here earlier this year and mentioned about Alex Golish from USF, John Summerall from Tulane. But then you also have the bad apples that becomes Billy Napier at Florida, and something how that turns out. You don't know with the group of five guys. Like, hey, they have a proven track record, they're winning, they have this, they have that, sure. But what do they do at the Power Five level? It's just like guys who are really good in college and they go play in the NFL. Is how do they translate to that next level? For me, I'm always gonna boast it. If you want offense, and definitely if Lenore Sellers is there for another year, I think Alex Golish, what he's done with Bruce Bowen down in USF, I think is it was same build, same kind of guy. I think he could do wondrous, and I mean wondrous things at South Carolina. And then also the tree that he's from with Josh Heupel, where he just has an explosive offense. That, like, I mean, you saw it, dude. You saw that kid Nick Harbor yesterday, 6'5", 244,
Yeah.
and fly.
Yeah.
Him, Little Sellers, a bunch of other guys on that offense. You can easily throw in a really good high offense. And that's what I think the thing has been with South Carolina this season is you got to go back to who they hired as offensive coordinator after Laggins left last year to go to App State.
Oh gosh, yeah. Shula?
Yeah. Mike
Oh.
Shula, not a great head coach. He's been an offensive analyst. Analyst for like the last 5 seasons at different spots. So
And they let him go.
yeah, there's a reason for it, and it looked like their offense got a little better, but still the same point. Your offense this season has been stagnant. It hasn't been great because you've implemented a. That's my problem. Is like dipping back. A lot of these head coaches openings, a lot of people are dipping back into the well. And growing up, there were a lot of head coaches I loved, but when you dip back into the well of a certain head coach that has gotten older, there's just not usually a lot of success that follows. No offense, I'd loved Dan Mullen growing up. Reaching back into the well of Dan Mullen usually has not provided benefits for anybody. UNLV has been decent this season, but he isn't going to make it back. Les Miles when he went to Kansas. Loved Les Miles at LSU. Les Miles to Kansas did not work. He did not bring him back. You dip back into the well, it usually doesn't work. I think, and like even here of lately, Chip Kelly at UCLA, that was a rough one too, and then he ended up going to Ohio State. So like I think it's you got to promote new guys instead of taking and saying, hey, this older coach, he was successful then. Mike Shula wasn't even successful way back in his day. It's less than 2025, but he's so successful. Like, oh, we can bring him back and do this, and like it typically doesn't work anymore. It's like that. Hey, I had a really hot girlfriend 10 years ago. Maybe we could try it again. No, it just doesn't work, buddy. It just don't do it. I think that's a problem with a lot of them. Like, no offense, I think a lot of people at LSU, and if we throw enough money at Saban, he might do this. I don't think Saban would be a good coach. He's been out for 3 years, and he's got to deal with all these people that want $4 million to play backup kicker. I don't think he'd do too well. So, I think it's a lot of that. You got to promote new guys. That's why
And then like Belichick. He's been an absolute failure.
perfect. What are they, like 1 in like 7 this year? 2 and 7?
They're bad. They're bad, dude.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not like man, next season they're going to be better. There's no hope for that North Carolina team. Like it is, Belichick is getting his butt whooped, and there's no like nothing to say positive about that team right now. And I feel really bad for him. But yeah, that's a great point. So I think a lot of it has to be, let me look at the group of five. Let me look at really good coordinators under these people. And like coordinators around the SEC are perfect to look at because they're always budding to try and open up. But at the end of the day, like there's a graphic, and I nearly laughed my butt off when it happened. Earlier this season, I think it was after his first or second win of the season for Beamer. He was the fastest head coach at South Carolina to reach 30 wins. Whole graphic, do the whole thing. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's really cool. What's it been? 2, 3. He's been there 5 years. His record is 32-29. You're telling me at South Carolina, the fastest a guy's ever been 30 to win 30 games, 5 seasons. That's remarkable. Like, congrats to South Carolina, but it shows that at the end of the day, without Steve Spurrier on your sideline, you're on the same level Mississippi State, Vandy, Kentucky. Like, there's nothing respectable about you that says, you know what, Auburn's got an opening, Florida's got an opening, all these other teams. You know what? I'm gonna look at South Carolina first. There's nothing that tells me that.
Yeah. The biggest thing that they have going for themselves is that patch on the shirt that says this right here, the SEC. That's the only thing that they have going.
Yeah, if they were the ACC, they like
Brother.
some teams are going to Group of 5 schools probably first to get hired.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They're in a sad state of affairs for sure.
yeah,
I'm curious to see what they do though, like with the coaching carousel. I don't think they fire him.
yeah.
Even though we would, I don't think they will.
Well, and I think another thing with the NIL stuff too, because I'm kind of witnessing it a lot at like the lower levels more so. So probably not South Carolina as much, but these schools are building up their NIL budget so much that the money that they're paying these coaches to buy out, right? Like a James Franklin or something that has this enormous buyout, is like it's hard for them to fire coaches because it's like, well, he's got 40,000 over the next or 40 million over the next 3 years, and we don't have that money right now because we're trying to allocate all of our money to athletes. And so it's like you have to be very strategic in how you fire coaches nowadays in an environment that coaches are more should be held more accountable than ever because like you're getting the talent, you're using money to get all the greatest talent in the world, and coaches have to process that into a functioning football team on the field to produce wins. And coaches should be held more accountable than ever because of that. And so now it's like we don't have the money to fire him because if we fire him for 40 million, now we got to go hire a guy, but
Yep.
we don't have the money to hire a good enough guy. And it's a lot of revolving doors. So I think that's the biggest thing with some of these and like how 10 years ago it was like, oh, you just lost to Appalachian State, you got to be fired. Okay, well, you're not allocating so much money to all these players. You can go afford a new good head coach, right? But now you don't have that luxury anymore. So it's going to be very interesting if they fire him at all after this season.
But I do think that so on that point, it's interesting because remember when Arkansas fired Pittman, they came out and said that he was at an unfair advantage because we didn't allocate enough resources to the football program for NIL and stuff. Well, now that they've fired him, they're going to do that for the next head coach. And part of me thinks that the reason why they didn't to begin with is because they wanted him gone anyway. And so they were kind of saving that money up to be able to fire him. And then from here on out, they'll start allocating that money. So it's going to be interesting to see moving forward, some of these schools like in Arkansas or, like a South Carolina that maybe don't have the big budgets of the Texas, the Georgia, the Alabama, which to be fair, Arkansas should. I mean, you have the Waltmans and you have Jerry Jones. Like you have some of the biggest. Anyway, that's a whole separate video. But it's going to be interesting to see what those schools do.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And just kind of, as a fan, if you're watching, just remember when you scream "fire him," just think about all the money that has to course through hands before you start doing so. But as always, it's been 3 bold takes. So thankful for you to tune in and watch us talking about Beamer. Let us know what you think. If you like Beamer, let us know why. If you hate him, let us know why. It's been Freddie and Chase. So thankful to have you on today.